All right, guys, now that the ceiling is basically done, we're gonna leave the garage for now, like I said. We're on to the walls. You'll see behind me, we actually did some SIGA Majrex with Etienne. Etienne is the CEO of North America for SIGA. So yeah, we got the CEO out here to help us with the install, and he showed us a lot of the details to make sure we were comfortable, because this is very important. We can't just come out here and run it across the wall. There are some details that we need to consider. I'm going to take you through those, the things I've learned, and hopefully a lot of it will make sense. So let's go ahead and jump into this install. So the first thing that we need to do is we want to install our Fentrim tape. This is very important because this is what seals the wall off at the bottom where the concrete meets the wall. And you can't just use any tape, any sealant. It's got to be something that really adheres to the concrete. And what's nice about Fentrim is it doesn't require a primer, but you do need a clean surface. So I've already gone through and I've brushed the surface out. I've made sure that all the debris was gone. And this Fentrim right here, you can see has the nice little 1/2-inch bend. This is key for this install. So let me show you how this goes down in the process to make sure that we get a good seal at the bottom. So because I know this dimension here, it's just a little over 1.5 inches, I want to make sure that that tape is back behind this framing, because eventually I will have wall framing going up this wall. You guys have seen us do a lot of our interior post frames, and maybe, if not, stick around, you'll see. But I don't want the tape to be outside of this. I want to make sure it's tucked back. So what I'm going to do is use a piece of lumber like so. I'm going to line it up right where it's going to be, and I'm going to mark it in a nice straight line. Okay, so now what that is going to allow me to do is to install my Fentrim right where it needs to be, and it ensures that it doesn't come out and impede on my lumber going down. And this is going to be twofold. It's also going to be our barrier between the concrete and our lumber, so we don't have to use green treated down here at the bottom, which is never nice. It's a little bit bigger, and it's just, you know, it doesn't play as nicely as whitewood. So with the Fentrim, I actually want to run right to left. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark out to this doorway, and then we'll do a nice install. The reason we want to go right to left is because this little 1/2-inch bend, we're going to run that edge right along that line. So it would be hard to go right to left to right. It's just not possible. And as we go out, we're going to roll it. We want that stuck down to the concrete. Now when I get into this corner, what I want to do is I want to leave myself a little bit extra material, and I can always play with it or cut it off later, but you don't want to short yourself, so I'm just going to kind of run it just slightly long, and then I'll cut it off. All right, now, before we run our Majrex, we're going to get the first set of tape. There's a double fold on this, or 2 strips of backing. We're going to pull off the one side, and we're going to get it applied down to the concrete, but we're going to leave the other side unpeeled. That way we can get our Majrex down, and it doesn't stick to it. So now you can see this fold. It's kind of amazing how well this sticks down. And we're going to kind of introduce a fold into this tape as we go. So I'm assuming by now you can kind of see why we installed it, where we installed it, because when this Majrex comes down, we'll be able to pull this backing, stick it straight up, and we're going to get this nice crisp line right at the bottom of our 2x4 line. Now, whenever you're doing unprimed sealant down to the concrete, and you're not priming the concrete, SIGA does recommend 2 inches down on the concrete. So that is why we run the fold down on the concrete first. It gives us our about 2 1/4 inch actually connection point down here. And since the floor is going to be a wood floor or a composite wood floor, engineered lumber, whatever, this is all going to get covered. So it's a perfect detail to air seal this point. Okay guys, now that that's down, what we need to do is establish a perfectly level line to make our job easier to install the Majrex, because if you don't install it straight and you get any sort of up and down in the Majrex, it can get wavy, and then it's harder to tape seal those joints. So the straighter you get it, the tighter and flat it is, the better it will be. Same stuff that we used, Twinit, I don't know, Twinet. This is a double-sided tape from SIGA, and this is what allows us not to have to staple anything. We're gonna run this up all of our posts as well. So I'm just gonna start here at the top, and I'm gonna run it down each center of all the posts. And this is gonna give us a really nice, solid connection, which is really handy in keeping this stuff nice and straight. And I'm also going to make sure that I run around all the windows and doors as well. So for this, this is going to give us a nice connection around these openings as well, because we'll run through them. We'll just run all the way across, and then we'll cut out later, and you'll see how nice it will be because this tape was already here. Now I'm just running my hand over all of this, but I do want to come back and put the roller to it to make sure that it is good and stuck to the material. Okay, now that we have this installed on our framing members, we can get a line established at the exact height of the Majrex, because we want it to run super straight. All right, so I'm just gonna come here arbitrarily and make a 59-inch mark. And that will be the height of the Majrex because it's 59 inches. It'll make sure that it goes right to the bottom, but not too much material or not enough material to get my tape to seal to. So we'll set up our laser to that. All right, so we'll just set this thing up and make sure that we're on our 59-inch mark. This nice laser stand allows us to just set the laser and then kind of crank it right where we want it. We can just dial it in real nice. And being self-leveling, I don't have to worry about checking it. There, so that's nice. What that tells me is I'm just gonna go right on that laser line and I should be good enough for my 59. All right, now it's time to get our Majrex. Because we're on the ground and we're gonna be at the height of this, we can roll out our Majrex, but I give you a suggestion, and that will be to cut to size any pieces that you have to have above your head so you don't have to roll out a monster roll of materials. All right, little trick here. Instead of pulling all the backing off this tape, since we're only doing the bottom, what I'm going to do is just pull about 6 or 8 inches off of this, and that's all we're gonna pull off down this entire wall. You know, I gotta be honest, this was a trick that Etienne showed me when he was here, and he did it like flawless every time. So I'm still getting there. We're not gonna do anything here in the corner. It's already been taped when we came this way, and so we're just gonna overlap it, and then we'll do our raison, I don't know how you say it, seal there. So now we can run some Majrex. All right, so this SIGA Majrex, I don't know if you've ever seen it up close, but it's kind of a fibery woven material. It's very rigid. It's really nice to work with, but by doing this line, it definitely gives you a better result. So it's important, I think, either snap a line or use a laser. A laser is just easy for us. So I'm gonna start with a nice clean edge at my door, and I'm just gonna overlap it a hair, but we're just gonna set this, and we're not gonna go crazy on this, okay? I'm gonna put a staple here because that's underneath my tape. I'm not really worried about that. And we're just gonna kind of roll this out. Now, because I'm here by myself, this is a little bit trickier. I wish Greg was here. He's busy right now. We're just gonna set it right there, just to make sure that it goes nowhere. We're just gonna snug it up. We're not looking to, you know, it's not a tow rope. We're not stretching the crap out of it, but we want it nice and snug. Okay, and then here in the corner, I'll show you another trick with this material. We want to give ourselves just a little bit extra. So I'm going to cut it right down this line. And when cutting Majrex, you don't want to just start at the top and cut it. You want to come down just a little bit. And what that does is it maintains some structure up top so the sheet's not flapping on you, making it hard to cut. And then once you've made your cut down, you can come back up and just give yourself your cut. Okay, so this is also going to be a taped area. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to maintain my laser line. Important for us because we have exterior, well, we have girts on the outside of our post. I need to make sure that I've got enough material here so when I run my framing over, it's not going to be in my way. So it might look a little crummy right now, but it's because I'm going to leave myself excess material back here. Somebody loves me. Oh, it's Greg. Hey, Greg, what's up?
Hey, dude, just, living the dream. I think everything's pretty much done blowing around here, except for maybe like a couple emergency exits.
So you going to decide to come to work today then, or what?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
All right, man. Well, I could definitely use your help.
Yeah, I'll head that way in a minute.
Yeah, man.
One more little thing I gotta do, and then I'll be that way.
All right, buddy. We'll see you here. I miss you.
All right, see you
Bye.
later.
Nice. I miss Greg. Mainly because it just is easier when you have 4 hands instead of just 2. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead. Remember, we did not pull that tape all the way down. That's because now we can work with this. It's not like super sticky. So we're just going to grab the bottom in the middle. So you always want to start in the middle. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky because we've got a window right next to it. We've got a post, and we're just going to kind of pull this off. Okay. And then I'm going to keep it stretched right here in the middle. And we're going to come down, and while it's nice and taut, we're going to try to work it down nice and flat. Now, this is where anal retentive tendencies for me come into play because I really want it to look good, even though it's getting covered up with drywall. I still want it to look good. But check this out. Look at that nice detail. The Majrex ends right where our SIGA Fentrim is going to come over and give us a nice seal. And so that's the reason we marked this out perfectly, and then we marked out the height of the Majrex so that this detail will come together just like this. But let's get all these taped down, the columns, and then we'll go from there. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, this kind of seems like more work than just stapling it up as you go. And that's 100% true. But I think this is a better end result. And this is something in the build that you're never going to redo. So take the time, do as good as you can, and hopefully reap the benefits for the life of the home versus just trying to get it done quickly and make it easy on yourself. That's not really our goal here. Okay, so once we have this done, we're just gonna get this SIGA bent out in front of it. Okay, and then this is probably what I would consider the trickiest part, just because we don't have anything super solid back here, but after you do it a couple times, really the most important thing is that we get it stuck, and then you can kind of push it against the rock wool behind it. And the best, most important thing is that this line right here is back behind our framing, which is, as you can see, good to go. So let's pull this backing off. We'll start back at the corner and work our way. Oh man, look at this. This is incredibly sticky stuff. See if you can use the backer to kind of pull the material and keep it nice and tight. And it's amazing how sticky the Fentrim is to the Majrex. You don't have to worry at all, because obviously we're not going to be able to roll this, but you just want to run your hand. And you see if you can kind of just grab it. We try to reduce any wrinkles. Wrinkles are how air makes its way into a system. Ooh, get a little ahead of myself here. Get tight to the corner. I want to try to keep this somewhat taut. Like I said, this is probably the trickiest area. And we might have to run, well, we will run another piece of tape here and then up here, but that'll come later. So there we go. We're just gonna run our hand, make sure that we're good. But take a look at that detail. I mean, when you take a step back and see how this does, we are now air sealed down to the concrete. There's really no better way I've seen to do this. You could use a foam closure that gets pushed down tight. We've done that in the past, but I like this. A little bit more work, but definitely a much better end result. And I'm telling you guys, this stuff, look at this. I'm stuck down to the concrete. I have to work that to get it up. It's really quite amazing. Okay, so now that we have the bottom row, thank God Greg showed up. Thank you. Because now we have to run this top piece. Now we got lucky. This is 59 inches. By time we come down from the top, our overlap is gonna be perfect. So we got real lucky. We're just gonna have one tape joint in the middle. And in this corner, you can see this side wraps around. So we've got material that's gonna be tucked underneath. And then I'm going to do just like a 4-inch, which each one of these little block sections are roughly 4 inches. So I'm gonna get up here and I'm gonna wrap it around 4 inches, and then I'm gonna staple this guy. A little bit tricky here. Now that's all tucked under, so I'm not too worried about those staples, but I don't want it to pull out until we get it stuck to the SIGA adhesive on each of the columns there. Okay, Greg, remember we want to leave it a little bit loose in this corner so we get a little bit of this action. Yep. So we'll kind of snug it up. So I'm gonna get it where it's snug, and then I'm gonna work it back just a little bit. And that is so I get a little bit of slack in my corner for our framing. Okay, so now that we got the top ran, we'll kind of do the same thing. We'll start in the middle, pull our tape, stretch it down, and get this looking nice and flat. So now we're just gonna start in the middle, and we're gonna just kind of keep it nice and taut. And then we'll work out from there. What that allows us to do is to kind of work all the bubble and excess out to the edges. If you start on an end, you might encounter a little issue. Nothing that's gonna be, you know, a game changer, but definitely makes it easier. Come on. So I don't really care how many staples you were to use. You would never get it to run this nice and tight because you've always got the bulge working against you of the insulation in the bay. And this is just gonna make a nice tight joint everywhere, which is important later on when we do these windows, and you'll see. So this 2x4 that you might be able to see through the wall, or the Majrex, that is the defining line of our wall corner. So we need to make sure that this framing is gonna come across and have enough room to make it all the way on here. So that's why I left all this kind of slack. Unfortunately, it doesn't look as good, but when we run our framing, this won't impede us in getting it where we want it. So this is gonna be a little bit loose until the framing tightens it up nice. Because that kind of looks pretty trashy, I know. And I don't like it, but it is what it is. We have to do it. All right, now that the Majrex is up, it's onto the detail work, which is gonna be done with Rasan tape. I still don't know how to say that exactly. And that's how we're gonna close up all these joints, seal off all the windows and doors, so let's get into that. But we're just gonna run right on this line here, and that's gonna be my overlap I need. But we don't need to run tape through the middle. That'd be a waste. So now that we're running this tape, you can see that if this Majrex was doing this and we didn't install it to that laser line, it would make this taping process a lot harder because it would introduce potential fish mouths in your tape. And if you don't know what that is, that's when you get a bad crease and you don't get a nice tight joint. Outside, that's bad for moisture. Inside, it's bad for air. So we want a nice flat surface to get the best seal possible. I found that when running this without a solid backing, what you want to do is kind of just get it to almost gently lay onto the material. Then you can push hard against it and it sticks really nice. And once you have your hand on it, it's not going to come apart because it does stick so well, but you're kind of forcing some pressure on the adhesive to get it to make sure that it does a good job sealing up. You don't want to just run your hand over it once and be done. Okay, this corner is going to be where you're going to see how much more interesting it is when your material is not running nice and flat, because we've got so much extra material here in the corner. So we're just going to kind of work it. We're kind of working that bubble here to the corner. And as long as I kind of keep pressure, keeping it tight, it does a pretty good job. There we go. So I should have enough material here to kind of tighten that up. There's my stud line, and I'm back behind it. Okay, so that is the joint here. Let's go ahead and cut one of these windows out, and we'll see how we do that. So this is why it's important to run that tape around these windows. It makes this process a lot easier. I'm just going to run my knife blade right along the edge of the window jamb. And look at that. This is already perfectly tight and snug right where I want it. I'm not going to have to deal with flapping material. And now what I'll do is, first things first, I'm going to take just like a 4 or 5 inch piece of rasan, and we're going to work it in the corner. So I'm going to start about halfway on one side. This is where it's nice to have a squeegee. Work it right into the corner and up the other side. Now the nice thing about this tape is that I can stretch it. So it's not exactly a stretch tape, but it does have some stretching capability. And I'm just going to work it right around. Squeegee it. And I'm going to do this on all 4 corners. Now the nice thing about this is what it's going to do is it's going to connect to my Fentrim. So the SIGA Fentrim that was sealed to the window frame is now getting connected to the interior air control layer, in essence entirely sealing this whole thing off. I mean, it really is going to be a super airtight system. Just take this, we'll run it, and I can see right through the backing. I don't know if you can see this here, but I can see right through it. So I can just make sure that I'm running about halfway on the tape this way, and then we're going to fold it right around the opening. So here's a detail that we probably should have done earlier, but we're putting some of the SIGA double-sided tape on the bottom of this 2x6. This 2x6 is a top wall girt, so it is the outside of our wall, and this is going to be to detail this Majrex right here. So you'll see that, but anytime you can use the double-sided tape, it makes it a lot easier to deal with all this stuff. The problem we found is if we don't do the double-sided tape and we just go ahead and try to connect the wall Majrex to the ceiling Majrex, it's kind of floppy and hard to handle. So by tucking it up in here and by getting this secured to this double-sided tape, we'll be able to make a nice clean cut on our Majrex and also make a nice clean joint with the tape. Because like I said before, when you don't have a good, clean, solid surface to tape to, you potentially get some of the fish mouthing on the tape joint and then air leakage. So we're gonna go through, I'm gonna do this detail across this whole wall. Not as easy as the back end wall that we just had one solid piece so we could just run a nice clean line. I need to make sure to connect all of these lines to the ceiling joints and get it all taped. But a lot of repetitious work, but the details are all the same. Anytime we have a lap joint, we wanna make sure we split that lap joint with a piece of Razan and then make sure we work that in. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep on doing this detail, but it's a lot of the same exact thing. All right, so this is the corner detail that I knew I was gonna have to deal with, and this ceiling Majrex kind of all comes together in this corner, and really what I need to make sure is that this is all sealed off. Okay, so you can already see this joint, and we're gonna keep working it around. So this is all one piece. No matter which way I fold this, it's one piece. I need to make sure I've got it snugged back in here and I'm able to tape it off. So you can see, once again, this is all one piece. I need to make sure that if I tape this all around, it's going to get sealed off. So as long as I can get this somewhat flattened out, and this flattened out for the drywaller, I don't want to do a ton of cutting, and the drywall is going to have no issue making this work. So we're going to put a staple here. And then I think all we're going to do is take some pieces of Rasan. Let me see if I can get a piece. And we're just going to kind of start closing this off. Is it going to be the most perfectly folded piece of origami? No, probably not. But sometimes, well, all the time, function is more important than form. And for good measure, let's go ahead and Let's go ahead and run down this. Even though I don't think that there is any air leakage here, let's, oh, come on. Let's go ahead and just cover this up. That way nobody's like, oh, Kyle, it's gonna leak air. I was gonna say do your best, caulk the rest, but we'll do our best, Razan tape the rest here on this one. Yeah, I'm not too worried here. So now that we've got this, we can still get all of our framing tight into this corner over here. This is all just kind of folded onto itself. Not the prettiest, but it's gonna work for sure. And now we can finish this little detail up right here. It's nice that the rock wool's back here. I can kind of push into it and make sure that the tape seals down pretty nice. I'm telling you, this stuff sticks. It's not going to be coming up anytime soon. So, all right, guys, we finally wrapped up. Well, in this room, we wrapped up all the insulation details and the air control layer details. And that's what I really wanted to show to you guys. There is obviously some more to do here in this project because we've got the garage that's yet to be even insulated. And we're just going to leave that until we can get the rest of this done. But now that this part of the process is done, I hope you guys can really see the level of detail and thought and effort that has gone into making sure that this house is super well insulated, and we've got great air control so that we can control the amount of air that comes into the building. Everybody talks about your house should breathe, and while that's true in a sense that you want to bring fresh air in, but you want to do it under your terms, not just naturally through a leaky house, because that's dirty air, it's unconditioned air, and it's not going to be good for the health of the people inside or for your utilities. You know, you want to be able to control all of that. So now that this is done, we're going to be moving on to the interior framing. So if that's something you guys are interested in, obviously if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Maybe if you enjoyed this content, smash that thumbs up, and we'll catch you guys on the next video when we start interior framing.